So you want to put your first pedal board together. Where in the world do you start? That's what we're going to go over in this video coming up. Hey, I'm Nate Savage. In this video, we're going to cover putting your first pedal board together because I know it can be a really overwhelming task. I have every pedal that I own here, plus some of my wife's. And this is what it can feel like when you're first starting to get into pedals. And so that's why I wanted to put this video together. Initially, I got the idea for this because my dad just put his first pedal board together. It's a very small, simple pedal board, but it really works for him. And I wanted to give you some tips for what pedals that you might want or what pedals you might need, particularly if you're playing a church gig, and then how to kind of put everything together. And it doesn't have to be super fancy, so I'm gonna get rid of all this and start with a blank slate. I have a couple of things here that are gonna help us too. Zip ties and some Velcro. Let me get all this out of the way and we'll get started. So what do you really even need when you're first starting to put a pedal board together? A lot of people think, oh, I need a compressor, I need some chorus, I need loads of distortions and overdrives, I need tuner pedals, volume pedals, expression pedals. The truth is you only need a few things to get started, and I'm going to go through those with you and give you some recommendations on things that you can add to your pedal board as you go along. The first thing that I would say is it doesn't really matter which pedal board you have. You can have a really simple Pedal Train Junior. But one thing that I always do on pedal boards when I get them, make sure I'm in frame there, is Velcro them up. Just to make it easy to put pedals on and off, and to make it to where I can move pedals around if I want. So that's what I'm going to do first. You can see I already have this kind of set up with Velcro, but I ran out. So this is the first opportunity that I've had or needed to do to finish outfitting this with Velcro. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here for you. And this is really, I'll throw in a picture of my wife's pedal board here too. It's covered with Velcro just so you can take pedals and stick them on in any order you want to. Hey Chelsea, yeah. Can you bring me my blue knife, or any knife, it doesn't matter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, I've got the fuzzy side down on the board, and that's what I always recommend doing. I don't know why, it's just what I've always done. And on all the back of all my pedals, you'll see that I have I guess it would be the hook side. And this makes it really easy to throw a pedal down, and it stays put anywhere you want on the board. It's just a really efficient way of doing it. So there's a lot to go through here, so I'm just gonna start with which pedals I would recommend for a basic church or basic kind of cover gig setup that will get you to where you can get a bunch of different decent sounds, and then you can add to it from there. Actually, I'll show you a picture of this board outfitted with what I would consider a big setup for myself with lots of pedals, so you have some context for it. Here it is. And then we're going to build something a lot more scaled back and easy to deal with, and kind of decide what you like as far as pedal deals. The first thing I'd recommend having if you are a church guitar player, or if you're in a cover band in general, or really any kind of music, is a volume pedal. It functions as a kill switch. You can hit it and it'll kill your signal, which is great, or it can kind of serve as a gain a gain knob too, or volume knob for your guitar. You know, when you back off on your guitar knob, your guitar volume knob, and it's not as sensitive, kind of backs off on the gain, it cleans up. You can do the same thing, only you can do it with your foot, so your hands are free to do that. So that's the first thing that I would put. Bam. And VP Junior is just what I use. There are any ball VP Junior, but there are tons of great volume pedals out there that you can use. The next thing that I usually go into is, where is it? Is a tuner pedal. To me, is really essential for any kind of live rig, or even any kind of at-home rig. It doesn't matter which one. These are the two that I use. Boss TU3 or a Polytune. I like the Polytune just because I can do some quick checks, and I'll show you why I put this up here instead of down here. Let me actually this is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of cables that I'm using here, just because you just see this room, it's a disaster. It has everything pedal and cable related out but it looks nice on this camera, so that's all that matters. You would go into your guitar, from your guitar into the volume pedal, and then you'd come out of the tuner on this particular one as the one called tuner out right there. So what that does is it keeps the signal going to your tuner all the time, so you can keep your tuner on all the time, even if your volume pedal is backed off. So it's coming out of there, and even if I hit my volume pedal to turn it off, there will still be signal to this tuner pedal. And you're gonna realize that doing layouts for pedal boards is like art. It has to be, you have to maximize your space and make it fit your kind of workflow with whatever you're trying to kind of do in guitar. After that, it'll come right out of the volume pedal into whatever drive pedal you want. You may not know which drive pedal you like. I have a ton here, just so you can get a good idea of you know, what's available out there too. Actually, this OCD doesn't work. I'll use my wife's. These are the drive pedals I have. You don't need all of them, but they're nice to have. If you're doing some kind of gig, whether it's a church gig or a cover gig, you might need two. But let's go with just one, just to keep things simple and give you a good place to start. A really staple pedal is just an Ibanez tube screamer. And here's the mini to save real estate on the pedal board. So that's the first pedal that I'll put in line here. And this, you're gonna see the way I'm setting this up is really kind of the standard way for pedal order too. So if that's one of the questions you have, you know, what pedal should I buy? What order should I put them in? How do I set them up? This is gonna be a really good kind of template for you to follow. So first I would do volume pedal, then tuner, and then I would start going into drive pedals. I tell you what, let's do 2 drive pedals, just so we can kind of get a good idea for how to set this board up. So let's do an Ibanez tube screamer, relatively inexpensive for the mini, and then a full tone OCD. This is my favorite drive combination, besides something really expensive like this, which you don't need again. And you go just into the input, and then from the output to the input of whatever pedal you have next. And we'll talk about power and stuff like that in a minute. And I'll show you some ways to clean this up and make it a little bit nicer looking too as we go. But after any kind of drive pedals, what I would do is then start getting into time-based pedals. And the only 2 that I'm gonna focus on here is reverb and delay. Those are the only 2 you really need to worry about. So for reverb, I have my wife's Hall of Fame pedal. And then for delay, I have a flashback, TC Electronics. So those are the 2 that I would use. And they can be any reverb or delay pedal you want. I literally, the older I get, I don't know if it's just, I'm just getting older and saltier, the less I care about what drive pedals, delay pedals, reverb pedals, as long as it's something going in to a quality amp or a quality amp modeler, and then I'm pretty well good to go. We're getting pretty set up here. So let me get these cables plugged in, and we'll start doing some power, and I'll show you some ways to make your pedal boards a little bit neater. But this is really all you need. A volume pedal, a tuner, a couple of drives, maybe 1 drive, and then maybe some time-based effects. If you have reverb on your amp, you don't even need this pedal. You can take this off and just go straight into your amp, and you'll have the reverb that you need. But if you don't, reverb pedal is always good. And really, this is all you need. Most reverbs, most amps out nowadays have reverb. So really, I'm gonna forego this and say this is all you need for a basic pedal board setup. After this, again, you could do the reverb if you wanted to. Where's my coarse pedal? You could do a coarse pedal. If you wanted to, that's where that would go as well, somewhere to after the drive effects. Actually, coarse pedal is pretty subjective. You can get different sounds putting it in different spots on the pedal board. To make this a little more interesting, I'm just gonna put this reverb back on here. And then, from here, you would go out to your amp. I'm not using an amp, so I have just an amp modeler. This is a Line 6 HX Stomp. Put it anywhere you want. Get some power to it, which we'll do in a second, and then you can just run from your output of your next pedal or your last pedal into the input of whatever amp model or whatever amp you're using. All right, so output to input. Okay, now you're probably gonna notice that, okay, you have no power yet, Nate. How are you going to address this issue? And how are you going to clean this up, all these wires and things like that? Well, a lot of guitar pedal boards nowadays come with some kind of system to go around the back of the pedal board and then to hide all your pedals and really get them clean looking as far as the power or the patch cable. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Let me show you the back of this one. It has a power supply right here. And it has all these little individual cables coming off. And it's really cool because it's super light and has dip switches that you can use to customize or accommodate any kind of pedal that you have on your board. It's really awesome. But we'll get this looking good, and I'll give you some tips about power too. And if you don't have something that's this nice or this compact, if all you have is a one spot with some daisy chains, that's fine too. That'll work. Actually, let's go through and do that first real quick too. Okay, so with the one spot, they kind of get a bad reputation for being noisy, and they are a little bit more noisy than a nice isolated power supply. But a one spot with a daisy chain costs, I don't know, 30 or 40 bucks, something like that. And the idea behind this is that you plug the end of the daisy chain into your power supply, plug the power supply into the wall, and then you can just plug the first pedal in, then the second pedal, and so on all the way down the road. And this will get all the power that you need to your pedals, except for on big pedals like this. I'd be really careful with like multi-effects processing units. Use the power supply that comes with those. But this will work. I toured all over the place, you know, with just a backpack and a guitar. The backpack had a bunch of pedals in it with one spot, and this was kind of my setup, something like this. I would say these 5 pedals minus these 2. And that's what I did. I ran into just an old pod back in the day. But as far as power goes, you can see that this is already mounted under here, and there are lots of pedal boards have places for that. You just get, if you have like an isolated power brick or something like that. Another one that I have, this is a little bit cheaper, it's a DC power brick. So if I didn't have this, I would mount this underneath maybe here with some Velcro. I'll be good to go. And then I can start running these power leads up through the pedal board into the pedals, which is super clean, very nice looking. So once you have this on, you're starting to get all your power and cables in order. Having this Velcro is really nice because you can kind of move things around and customize it to where it's as clean as possible. And oftentimes you'll have holes in your pedal boards or like bars where you can run your cables underneath. And oftentimes when you're getting things kind of sorted out, you'll have like holes in your pedal board or bars where you can run things underneath. You'll be able to zip tie them and make them as clean as possible. All right, I'm just gonna plug the rest of these pedals in. And sometimes it takes some figuring out, like you're playing Tetris or something, just to get the optimal setup for whatever you're running through. One thing that I want to mention as I'm putting this together is that oftentimes once you get everything plugged in, you'll want to consolidate your pedals into a smaller space, just because you'll find that the pedals take up a lot more space than you think. Sometimes you're like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to cram all my pedals on this board. So getting them just as close together as you can be a really big help. And that's one thing that makes this Velcro idea so cool, is you can just pick them up and move them as you go along. All right, I've got all my power in, and we are in business everything but the HX Stomp, but everything's good to go. And I'm admittedly not the neatest person in the world, and this to me is neat enough. It looks good and looks sharp. However, the underside of this, not so much. So what do you do with this? This is where zip ties come in. Oftentimes I'll use Velcro or zip ties to just kind of get everything in order. And Velcro to me is a little bit better, but it's a little bit bulkier. It's not as clean looking. Only reason I think it's better is because it's easy to make adjustments as you go, so you're not stuck with whatever you initially decide. So you can see there's a lot of stuff here that I'm not even using. So the first step that I would do is just bind that up as best you can. And this is the part that I'm pretty terrible at, because once it's out of sight, out of mind, and it's not, and it's semi-neat, then it's good enough for me. But you may want to get really ridiculous with it like this, you know, something like that. or you might just want to leave well enough alone like I do. Either way is good. So I have a couple recommendations for you as far as power goes. If you can't or don't want to spend a lot of money, just get a one spot. They'll work. If you are playing a lot and moving around, I recommend getting just an actual brick, an isolated power supply. And you can do like the MXR DC brick. That's a good one, but the quality is not as nice as something like the one spot by True Tone. It's called the CS6 or something, but any kind of isolated brick power, or the I think it's called Pedal Power by Voodoo Labs. That's another really good one. They make tons of them out there in clocks, like the one that's in this pedal board. I really am impressed with this one, and I love it. It's light, and there are tons of options on it. So any of those will work. The main thing is when you're building your first pedal board, don't think you have to have every pedal under the sun. Like with this setup, I don't even need this reverb pedal. If I take that out and then just go from this delay pedal to my amp or amp modeler, I will be set, I will be good to go. So the main things are volume pedal if you want to do volume swells, and just to back off the gain to give yourself a little more versatility with your guitar tone, a tuner pedal, some kind of drive pedal, and you don't even need two. Just to make this even more simple, you could take this out, have just one drive pedal, go right into your delay. And this shows how easy this Velcro makes this to just adjust things on the fly. And there's a super simple pedal board compared to this nightmare beast of a pedal board. And don't feel like, you know, if I don't have this pedal, I can't make this certain sound or I can't play this certain way. This is all you need. If you have a tube amp, that's great. Plug this straight into your tube amp, set it to where it's a little bit pushed, and then you can use your overdrive pedal to send it over the edge into dirty mode, back off on your volume pedal a little bit if it's too dirty, and crank it for a good lead tone. The delay and a little bit of reverb on the amp is always essential, just because if you're playing a church gig, delay is really essential, that dotted eighth note with maybe on tape, and then using your tab tempo will give you almost every sound that you need to get through a gig like that. So let me know your recommendations for a lot of things in the comments below. What's your favorite drive pedal? What's your favorite delay pedal? What's your favorite volume pedal? Do you prefer going direct with something like an HX Stomp or Kemper, or do you like going into an amp? What's your favorite pedal board? What's your favorite power supply? If you have any questions, you can always leave them below too. What drive pedal should I get, Nate? I like this sound. Or what delay pedal should I get? I have this budget. I'm always happy to answer your questions down there. And if you need to schedule a private lesson, whether it's to get your pedal board together or with anything else you're struggling with your playing, you can always head over to natesavage.com and schedule a private lesson one-on-one with me there. That's it.